BREWtally Speaking podcast is proudly sponsored by rockabilia.com. For over 30 years, Rockabilia has been the go-to destination for all things band merch. With over 500,000 items in their online store and collaborations with today's hottest bands, you're sure to find something you love. Use our code BREW10 at checkout and take 10% off your total order. So go pick up your favorite new piece of merch now over at rockabilia.com. And now, on to the show.
Say you have to have a lot of passion for what you're doing. This rings true because it's so hard that if you don't, any rational person would give up. It's really hard, and you have to do it over a sustained period of time. So if you don't love it, and if you're not having fun doing it, you're gonna give up.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the BREWtally Speaking podcast. I am your host, John, and this episode's guest is Lorenzo Antonucci, formerly of Sworn Enemy, currently of Crowdkill Records, Antonucci Pictures, and so many other things. We'll get into all of that at the end of the episode, as you'll hear, but this is honestly been a long time coming. I've been wanting to get Lorenzo on for a multitude of reasons. If you've heard him on the Josta show, you know he's got stories for days. I think he's even been on the Doc Coyle podcast, if I'm not mistaken. Dude is just basically authentically him. And I fucking love people like that. And the other thing, I'm not going to necessarily get into specifics on this because literally as of when I'm recording this, I already did a podcast today with Jesse from Killswitch Engage. And I kind of go through a lot more of what's been going on, why the podcast has been on a couple of week hiatus, essentially. And so I don't really necessarily want to get into all of that. But it's also another thing, I think, something I will talk about in the few weeks of being gone, is just understanding that you need to take time for yourself and kind of prioritizing the things in your life. And something that I knew with what was kind of going on behind the scenes, if I'm being fully transparent, completely honest, the Ken Susi episode kind of just put a lot of eyes and ears onto this show. And that's a great problem to have, but it gets interesting when everyone kind of starts giving their opinions on what you should be doing and all these kind of things. And there just becomes this sort of pressure. And then on top of that, I'm working slowly still, like at this point, putting out, the 500th episode week. A good chunk of it, like everything's recorded. And at this point, it's just a matter of getting all of that stuff all wrapped up. But with this episode specifically, Lorenzo really wanted to kind of help push the show and this chat specifically. And with that kind of came some extra pressure on my end to try to do some things that I haven't done in a while, and still not entirely sure if I felt that it was the thing that I need to do to try to find a wider audience as far as how they find me. But that entailed going through and making reels, and it's a thing where I just knew that this episode, and honestly, every episode moving forward to the 500, there is some real good stuff coming up. This is just basically the tip of the iceberg at this point. And it's a thing where I just knew it needed more of me, more effort put into it than I was currently able to in light of the things that happened last week as I'm recording this. Being on my vacation and just honestly being truly present for my vacation with my wife. A lot of times I'll bring my laptop and I'll post things and, we'll be getting ready to go and I'll be like, oh, just give me a few more minutes to post this here and to do all these things. And, it's not the point of getting away from work, not doing that, not being present in your own life. And so it's just kind of a culmination of things. And then even work was getting, very tough and just a lot of uncertainty with, honestly, we were doing the real reality of it is we're doing SZA's tour merch right now. We're doing a handful of items for her tour that she's on right now with Kendrick Lamar. And, when I say we're doing the tour merch, that's an arena tour that is, we're doing, 40,000 t-shirts. We're doing, like 20 something thousand crew necks. We're doing thousands upon thousands of totes and things like that. And with that, especially with me being in the ink department, like I have to facilitate a whole shop to be productive while they're running. And that requires me at times to stay late or work weekends and things like that. So not having the time to really commit to this thing like I really know that it deserves. And I think that's a huge thing. I think a lot of times we're just not honest with ourselves with what we're doing, with the output of what we're doing. And to me, it's a thing where if I'm not putting 100% into the thing I'm doing, I think it shows, especially in this. And a lot of other things too, I guess. I think it doesn't just apply to a podcast, but it's something that it deserves more. Everything you do deserves as much effort and what you can put into it as possible. And I just got to a point where I realized that while the podcast is very important to me, the other things that were happening in my life needed more of my attention, like I said, and that's where I needed to be. At this point now, most of this is a tour merch is pretty much behind us at this point. And the thing that happened that you'll hear about later, it seemingly is kind of getting, it's still serious what we went through, but kind of more light at the end of the tunnel here, essentially, is where I'm at. So now it's kind of bringing this back into things and kind of finding that balance. And honestly, I couldn't think of a more interesting episode to drop in light of all these things, because Lorenzo and I kind of get into that, like the balance of life and family and just, being inspired and not settling. But all of that said, let's get into my conversation with Lorenzo, and I'll talk to you on the other side of it. So, I mean, first things first, this is, I feel like this is something I've been trying to manifest for a long time, but I have been a firm believer in approaching 500 episodes and doing this for almost 9 years, that things happen when they're supposed to happen versus when you try to force them. So I feel like you have lived a pretty incredible life between, touring, getting signed and all that kind of stuff to, working for Sumerian, kind of doing behind the scenes stuff, and then getting into real estate, getting into acting and doing a ton of other things. But the reason we're here, and we'll start here, is what was the impetus for you to get back into the music industry, especially on the label side of things with Crowdkill Records?
Interesting. Well, I being from where I'm, like based out of music my entire life into my like early 30s, and then moving to LA and then exploring wrestling at the time with Ash. We were trying to become
Forgot about that.
Wrestling. We were trying to make me some kind of wrestler. And I was in like at the same time working with Sumerian, like I always, I helped build the studio in Ash's like house. So we had like a home studio. I was helping engineer like Icy Star songs and stuff like that. And I was like, because I had a studio in Austria at the time, so I was still like in the engineering, recording, producing side of music still, but kind of low key. And I was, my music background was always, the passion of everything I've done. But when like I think I was still a Sumerian, but I was also helping Anthony Martini from E-Town Concrete, one of my, he is my brother. We were doing, when he had commission, he had Little Dicky made in Tokyo, and he was managing Tyga. I was loosely in that world and, and part of commission music in ways that, I always still had love for the music and my resources was still strong. But when, and Anthony and my business partner, Rich, we all started Gravel Road, and that's the country label for what we have. Lakeview, we have Willie Jones, we have Travis Bolt, who just is blowing up right now. Just Brandon from Dallas. We have a great roster that we're building on that, and me and Anthony started to, manage Nathan James and Filth, and we were like, we got to get into this, like the label side of things, and we could do so much because of our resources and what we've done. So pretty much, I was like, full steam ahead on signing those bands, and we got a lot of other things in the pipe, and sticking to the hardcore roots. Obviously, we'll get one of those hardcore bands that I'm very I have my eye on a few that I want to go after, that I really fucking think is awesome. Like to maybe potentially do something, maybe Paint of Truth or something like that. Like I would love to work with them. They're one of my favorites right now, and they remind me of where we were in the early 2000s and late 90s. As Sworn Enemy and Mindset became what we were. So there's a lot of reasons what that kept me in this space, like like the acting and filmmaking, TV, movies, fragrance, all the stuff that I have with Ashley Benson and all these different businesses that I have. I still missed music, and I was still loosely involved in so many ways. So Crowdkill was like formed about a year ago. In theory, like we started to just like figure out what we were going to do with it, and me and Anthony were like, let's run with it, and we wanted to um, be able to tap into our roots, be able to tap into every resource that we've made and have since the beginning of our careers. Me and Anthony go back 30 years, so we have a lot of friends who love us. They respect what we do. They always respected how we rolled and how we moved together. Me and Anthony always joked around that I should have been in E-Town Concrete because I was always really close with them, rolled with them all the time in their van or in their RV. We were like brothers. So me and Anthony became, we've been like family for, 30 years. We go back that long. So, he's had an incredible career in music. He exited Commission Records for $20 million. You know what I mean? So that's a hardcore kid, from Elizabeth, New Jersey. So we did this for many reasons of, we're still just hardcore kids. I still listen to Hatebreed every day. I still listen to Madball every day. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's never changed. No matter if you see me with Stallone or you see me with Bruce Willis, you see me doing these movies. I just did a movie with Tommy Lee. I'm still a fucking hardcore kid, and that is what made me really want to tap into that root of where we grew up in and what our culture. And since it's grown so much, we've decided to really utilize our strengths of being guys that went on the road, guys that were in bands that got signed, whether it was a major label or indie labels. We know the business from both spectrums. And then I was an executive vice president at Sumerian for the business development, and I had an A&R position. So those two combined gives you a lot of faith when you're dealing with someone that's not a suit. Someone that's relate to. That's someone that when your artist is like, dude, the shows are, we're not selling that much merch and there's only 100 kids and blah, blah, blah. You're like, that's how it goes. I've been there even when we were killing it, headlining in Europe. We would go on tour and it would suck in the US because we were opening up for blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to mention any names. And it just sucked. The bill sucked. And we would have to suck it up and do 40 dates like that and have miserable turnouts and miserable shows because it wasn't easy. I think artists can relate to artists on a much bigger level than artists that are business savvy and artists that pretty much been through what they're going through and can understand the, like I can understand what the kid's going through or the guy's going through or what he's feeling. I'm there to give my experience and what I've done, and I have a good enough track record to be someone to mentor someone else and explain how hard it is. And so, yeah, that's what made me want to start it, because I just feel like we're different than most people in labels who start labels. We have, a lot of hunger. We have a lot of desire to still be tapped into the hardcore universe, or metal and rock, which is kind of like a hybrid of, like, this is, I would say Crowdkill's a Trustkill, Sumerian, Roadrunner, kind of, Epitaph, maybe. Like, that's the kind
Yeah.
of hybrid that that we're trying to do all spectrums.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of touched on a lot of things I've been thinking about and wanted to discuss a little bit, so I'll kind of try to tackle them one by one. You had kind of said something, and I think what's interesting is sort of the perception of people, especially as we get older, especially you guys, musicians, or even I would say people just in the entertainment industry as a whole. Sometimes we lock into someone and they only exist in this pocket of time for us. For you as a musician, Sworn Enemy, someone might be like, I really fucking like this one record, whatever that one is, and didn't really check anything out, didn't really grow with you, but you're a huge part of that part of their life. And it's interesting to kind of think about how people perceive others that they apparently have followed or love in their careers. And I think Ant's a really interesting one, because when, like, I had done another show with a friend of mine that used to be my co-host, and the whole point was we'd listen to a band's discography. And so I grew up listening to all kinds of music. I think that's a byproduct of being out in the East Coast. Like, Delaware is not a hotbed for fucking music, but people are bringing shit in from Philly, from New York, from, Mass, from all these areas. So it felt like you were kind of an extension of what was kind of happening, in addition to, MTV generation, the early 90s and so forth too, kind of bringing stuff in other areas and regions to us. But it's funny because when we did the episode on E-Town, I remember everyone was like, I don't really know if I'm going to like this, because everyone just assumes Mandibles is what their whole career was.
Right.
And I was like, I think you were all going to be very surprised when you dip into it, especially after we did a Kandiri episode. I was like, if you fucking thought that was wild and you didn't give it its fair shake back then or even now, E-Town's going to do the same shit for you. And that's what fucking happened. And even so many comments were like, I just thought they were a one-hit wonder. And I was like, they were so much fucking more. And especially being out from the East Coast, it's like they were fucking breaking and everyone had respect for them. And then and then what y'all don't know is Ant went and fucking made an empire managing hip-hop artists, especially like Tyga and shit. I go, so you can clown on this motherfucker all you want, but he's doing shit. He's just doing it like behind the scenes, where maybe he's not out there like you think he is, but he's still making moves.
He's doing everything he said he was in his lyrics.
Absolutely. And it's a thing to me where I feel like the same thing probably can be said of you, but from a different perspective, because your lore as just being a good time dude hanging out with people on tour. I think you were kind of that conduit for everyone to just feel not the shittiness of being on the road, not, fuck, we're playing to 100 people. And you might be like, you know what, fuck it, playing for us tonight. Let's go crazy. Like, I've heard all those stories of you being that person for everybody, but I do often wonder, is it kind of weird? The perception maybe people have of you at this point is maybe not an accurate one. Like, do you feel like that's something you have constantly had to kind of overcome a little bit?
It's a good question. I've never really dived into what the fan base of Sworn Enemy or the fans of myself, which I'm very, if I have some, that's cool, man. I'm honored. I don't, I never thought about what they think I'm doing. Now I know that I have a lot of people cheering me on. I don't know if there's a lot of people hating on me, but because I don't see it, I don't hear it, but I wonder, like, going from being in the band and kind of being the managing aspect of the band, you have a lot of business sense. And that's the same thing with Anthony. He was like the managing arm of E-Town. Like Jamie's the managing arm of Hatebreed, like this. So Freddie's the managing arm of Madball, like there's so many things you learn, and it keeps you hungry. It keeps you, willing to try more. No risk, no reward. Like Steve Jobs said, stay hungry, stay foolish. And I've dove into businesses that I had nothing or no idea of what I'm doing. I had dove into businesses that I was completely delusional, and you got to be delusional, because Busta Rhymes said this in some pod, like, you know, you got to be delusional until it's real, you know. And it's not delusion as far as like you think you're better, or you think you're just a delusional person. You got to be delusional on your aspirations and your dreams that you're trying to achieve, because you work at them every day. Every day you move an inch closer to it. So, and you know, like, to me, it was always the hunger. And people could be, you know, cheering me on, or maybe they don't care, or you know, they only relate to the new Sworn Enemy lineup, and that's cool as well. You know, I know that, you know, me and Sal really were the brains and operation, and like the mythology of all the music was really us. You know, like, anything moving forward is based on what we wrote in the past, you know, to kind of keep the flow and style of everything. But I think that smart people, the people that are not on lamb goat hating on anybody, are like cheering me on, or like, yo, that's cool that he's done that. It's cool that he, you know, he's in these movies with all these fucking mega stars, and he's hanging out with Stallone, or he's in his house. You know, like, these are real things. You know what I mean? Like, you know, like, a fucking kid that comes from Jamaica, Queens, bro, and fucking no money. You know, like, the underdogs recognize the underdogs. You know, like, and you know, I don't really, you know, honestly, I really don't give a fuck what people think, because, you know, I don't do this for them. I do this for me. And if I have passion for something, if I'm, you know, passionate about anything, I feel like the love I put into it, people will feel that, and they'll be passionate for that, or they'll like that for that, because they resonate to it or something. You know, like, I just don't, you know, I feel like I was so committed to the hardcore scene, so committed to Sworn Enemy, and when it got hard and tough, and it was becoming really clear that the band was not going to go as far as I wanted to, I had to jump ship and begin Lorenzo Antonucci's career. You know what I mean? Because I really didn't know, you know, what I was doing, because half the time I was a fucking drunk mess, you know, when I drank, and that's all I wanted to do was drink on tour and play guitar, and hopefully we were big one day, you know. So I needed to get sober and, you know, find a new path.
Well, I think something in there, and the reason I kind of brought up the initial question is just because, you know, I think turning 40 kind of makes you reevaluate where you are in life, what's been happening, and so forth. I think the other thing is, in doing this and talking to a wide array of people of all ages and living everywhere across the world, you know, something that I learned that a lot of us kind of have is just this passion to continue to do something, even in spite of the adversities and so forth. But it's also sort of, you know, I was thinking as you were talking, I'm sure a phrase that probably maybe irks you a little bit too, because I know it certainly does me, is the phrase, it must be nice. It must be nice to hang out with Stallone. Yeah, it fucking is. You know what it took me to get here? It took me eating shit, going and playing in like fucking basements and doing all this shit and all this other things you don't see. You don't see the work. You just see the reward. And that's the thing, you know, and I don't want to get on a tangent about social media, but it's like that can be the thing people see and just, again, don't see the work. So to me, that's a phrase, like, as you were saying, I was like, I'm sure you've heard, oh, it must be nice. And it's like, yeah, fuck yeah, it is. Because I busted my ass to get here. But I was going to go ahead.
It's incredible. It's an accomplishment to be able to have a conversation and talk with one of the most iconic people on the planet, the most inspiring man on the planet when it comes to anything coming from the underdog universe. And hardcore kids should resonate to that. Hardcore kids should relate to that. Like, we all come from nothing. If you listen to fucking Terror, everything is about coming from nothing and getting to where we are. You know what I mean? Like, come on. Like what the fuck? Like, to me, it's like, yeah, it's nice. It's actually fucking great. It's fucking fantastic. to be friends with the guy and be able to, like, if I run into him, I can have a conversation with him. And, you know, like, I didn't get that because I was a rich boy, you know what I'm saying, that paid his way. I earned it because I'm a good person. You know what I'm saying? You got to be good. And yes, I was playing in basements, playing in living rooms, fucking touring in caravans, then the van, then the conversion van with the fucking TV when Poison the Well was like, yo, put the fucking TV in the middle, bro. You get a fucking PlayStation. Oh shit. We did that. You know what I'm saying? Like nobody, I don't think anybody who is allowed to be around was given it.
Yeah.
They earned it.
Yeah.
Respect is earned and returned, not demanded or stolen. You know, and I feel like that's you know, that's what I live by. And I feel like, you know, with Crowdkill Records, I think artists that are smart, hungry, and driven like the way we are, and we're more like a family. We're not like just some fucking labels that are gonna just try to rape you and take everything. We've figured out structures to make it artist friendly and very artist friendly, to be honest. It's more risky for us too. And at the end of the day, it's because if you believe in it, you're gonna fucking bust your ass putting every fucking ounce of energy into it, every ounce of money into it that's, you know, allocated to it. So it's like, you know, it must be nice to be where I am now. If that's what people are saying, and if people think that, yeah, I earned it, man. I earned it, and I'm not even close to where the fuck I want to go. You know what I mean? Like I'm not even close to where I want to go, and I want that to be heard, and I want people to resonate to that because you never fucking stop being hungry.
No. I think the thing that's interesting too that you had said a little bit ago was, you know, you knew that what you were doing at the time wasn't going to get you where you wanted to be, and you knew that probably was hard, but you knew it had to be, that it was time to jump ship, as you said. I don't know if I'd call it jumping ship, but I think something that's interesting about you hearing you say that is and I'm going to kind of back up and kind of explain this a little bit more for a reference. I'm saying this, I'm not putting words in anyone else. This isn't a conversation I've had with this person, so I don't want anyone to get it twisted. But when I listen to a show like Doc Coyle's, you know, especially when he's going back to the kind of the era of you guys touring in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, something I pick out when I hear some of these people talking is no accountability for their own actions in their own career. It was, well, if we would have gotten this tour, if we would have gotten not fucked by this label, if it was always something else other than their own, you chose to take that large ass advance, and then when it came time to recoup and you didn't, like that was on you, kind of. Like there's things where no one takes accountability, and I feel like that's such a big thing that I'm kind of really becoming staunchly like look inward for the answers of why things didn't work. And I bet you'll find more that you can change in yourself to kind of move forward and not make those bad decisions again. But a lot of people around you don't take that time. It's always, you know, famously I had a friend that was like, oh man, what happened? Like when I asked, what happened to this girl you were dating? Oh, they're crazy. I was like, man, that's fucking wild. The last 4 girls you've dated in the last year, all crazy. Mm-hmm. The only constant is you. You don't think you have anything to do with any of it?
Accountability is everything, bro. You got to be accountable. Hold yourself accountable. Maybe I can, you know, say that I'm accountable for Sworn Enemies, you know, like because I felt like we were, you know, outgrowing the hardcore sound and we wanted to move into like more of a metal sound, and maybe that's why things didn't grow for us. It grew in Europe. It didn't grow in the States. We got smaller in the States because the hardcore kids stopped coming to see us because we were more metal now. And I feel like was my fault, if that is a fault. You know what I mean? Musically, I always, growing up was Slayer all day. Slayer, Metallica, Anthrax. Those were my bands. And then when I was in school with Freddie Madball, we were kids, he introduced me to Colossal Man Was a Skinhead. I was 14 years old. He put the Walkman on my fucking ears in class, and I was like, holy shit, this is fucking sick. Then I loved Madball. Then I loved fucking, VOD. And then I started loving, of course, Biohazard, sick of it all, And then I got into fucking the Cro-Mags. And then I got into fucking, Bad Brains, Gorilla Biscuits. And then I got into all the fucking Hard Judge. And I got into like Marauder, all the hardcore mixed metal bands, because Cro-Mags had a fucking complete metal record too. Best Wishes ain't fucking like a hardcore record. That shit is like Metallica. That shit's like Ride the Lightning. You know what I mean? So that to me was the school I came from. So eventually I started writing more Slayer stuff and mixing it with a Madball two-step. You know what I mean? So that to me was why, we were starting to sound different, but we were still two-stepping on stage, but with long hair, and we were like metal dudes, but it was a hybrid of so many different pieces. But I saw a vision. I had a vision. It got us on Ozfest. You know what I'm saying? Like, not many hardcore bands but Hatebreed got on Ozfest before we did. You know what I mean? Yeah. Hatebreed was the first. We were the second traditional New York fucking hardcore band to be on Ozfest, which was unheard of. So that's why, because we were positioning our music sonically in that way where it would work with that crowd. It would work with that kind of audience. And it did. It helped. It was a really big, door that we opened, but it still was good enough for the hardcore kids to love as real as it gets, because it still had the edge to it. But then when we put out the beginning and the end, we went more metal, but we still had the good hardcore feel to it. But we signed to Abacus, which was powered by Century Media. And we just didn't, our second record took too long to come out. My mother was killed in a car crash. A lot of shit happened that took us a long time. We had members leave. Weird shit happened that sucked. Mike left from Detroit. That's my brother, Mike Cools. Cold as life, Detroit. You know what I mean? I love Mike. Shout out to Mike Cools. But he left, and it just got fucked up, and it postponed the writing. It postponed the momentum, and then we put out a more metal record, and then we had to rebuild from there. But at the same time, we were blowing up in Europe. We were blowing up in Japan. We were blowing up in South America. So that's what kept us going, is those regions. And those regions is why we kept it alive. But I will hold myself accountable for that decision, because I was adamant, and I was pretty much someone that was heavily influenced in the decisions in Sworn Enemy. So we all figured out the lane that we chose, that was the lane that we started to, and Sal would push back a little bit, like it's not hardcore enough. And I understand that. And, I've never talked about it. Now that I'm thinking about it now, it's a good point, the accountability, because, maybe I was wrong, but it worked in other territories in the US when we would play with Sepultura, or we were playing with Slayer, or we were playing with Slipknot, or we were playing with Cataclysm, and we were playing metal shows. The metal songs would go over, the metal songs would go over hard. And they would be like, dude, you guys are sick. Oh my God. They wouldn't even call us a hardcore band. Yeah. So it's like, where is the balance? I don't know, but I didn't want to fucking sit there and figure it out. I was done. I was 31 when I left Sworn Enemy, and I was like, I got to go. I got to figure out what I got to do. And it took me fucking 16 years to get to where I am now, leaving a band, and maybe I could have stayed in the band and fixed it, and maybe we would have had a great fucking resurgence, and shit might have popped off. I mean, I did a reunion with them last year at the Biohazard show, which was awesome. That felt fucking great. I didn't share the stage with Sal for 15 years, and that's my brother, man. We started this shit when we were kids, So, I'll take accountability for that part, that maybe why it started to fall off. But I guess it started to fall off, after 2 more records. You know, we put out, you know, like when we were playing Europe, we were headlining festivals that were predominantly hardcore, but our shit was going over hard. Like it was blowing up. So it's hard. I don't know. I you know, like Hatebreed always kind of stayed in the same lane, but added a few more metal licks, added a few more things. They always stayed with the same formula. And that's what was great about Jamie's brain, is that they wasn't broke, they didn't fix. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
But, you know, I felt like we could have followed the Lamb of God train. We could have, like, the wave of Lamb of God, the wave of As I Lay Dying. You know, these were all our friends, and Tim would produce all our music with me and everybody else. So we would produce these records together. And shout out to Joey Z. I know you had Life Agony. We did Maniacal, me, Joey, Sal, and pretty much Tim did that together. And I fucking love Life Agony. Life Agony. 1993, my old guitar player teacher, Pete Ross, let me listen to Plexiglass Gates. And that's when I fell in love with Life Agony. And I was like, this is the best band in the world. And that was before River Runs Red, or like a week before the record came out. I remember it vividly. I was in his room about 3 blocks away from my house on Liberty Avenue. Pete Ross was a great guitar player, and he was in a band called Eminon. They were like the sickest band with the sickest name, and they never really took off. And Jay, the singer, was awesome. I'm ranting now, but like I'll hold the accountability to that. I'll take the accountability. I'm with that.
So kind of, again, a few things, because you're kind of touching on things and it's kind of making me think. Something I don't think I've ever put the correlation to until you literally just said it. And as soon as I say this, I know you're gonna probably pick up on where I'm going with it. When you were talking about the territories, you know, as a wrestling fan myself, and especially, you know, thinking back to the early days of wrestling where there were territories, different promotions and so forth, it's funny to think about how some things didn't get over, where maybe you're a heel in one area, a territory, you're a face somewhere else, and you're massive. And thinking about how music can do that, where it's like, maybe just here, it's like, for whatever millions of reasons that it could be, it just didn't hit here, or only did for a little bit of time. But certain gimmicks get over everywhere. And I think at the end of the day, I think like good people and good bands will probably always get over on some capacity, regardless of the territory. But there is something else I would love to posit to you, because so I had Dwit on. We chatted last Friday from Integrity, and something I had kind of asked him.
Tell him I've never. Dwit was always a nice guy. He was always good to me.
I absolutely will. I'll probably hit him up as soon as we're done with this. But it's a thing where I kind of asked him about something of just like the influences of, you know, they were kind of in the Midwest, and, you know, I had kind of told you before we started recording, like, I'm from the East Coast and then moved out here in the Midwest in the mid 90s. And one of the big culture shocks to me was kind of a lack of culture. And again, not saying Delaware is necessarily the most hotbed of places for all culture and stuff, but we got it in.
Maryland, you got fucking Jersey, Philly, Camden, you got all that shit right next to you. So the culture.
Absolutely. So it's a thing to me where, you know, thinking about how, and this is what I asked him was, you know, what you were doing, which was, it was by hardcore standards, not hardcore. It was too metal, but metal said it was too hardcore. It was kind of the same thing with what they were doing. And I said, do you think it's a lack of being connected to any of the things to kind of not really give a fuck of what you're doing, and just kind of, well, we don't have rules here and no one's here to tell us not to do these things, so we're just kind of making our own shit because it's what we're interested in? And the answer he kind of gave wasn't necessarily a direct result of that, but it was, he said that we still had imagination. I still had my imagination, and I wasn't, you know, beaten down by not feeling creative or just thinking of what ifs. And right. I wonder, is that something maybe you think of it? Do you feel like you still have that like childlike imagination with anything that you do? Yeah,
I dream every day, brother. I'm dreaming every day. I'm creative every day. Like the rules, there are no rules. You know what I mean? That's how I look at it. And every time I think about like what you're saying with Dwid, with I'm spacing on that fucking name right now. Jesus Christ. Integrity, which I love. Integrity. My Life Crew, all those bands were fucking awesome when I was a young puppy, fucking dancing and clobbering kids in the heads, you know, with my Timbs on. I will always go to my favorite band out of that genre, and they're called All Out War. All Out War is one of the best bands that never got to the size they should have been, in my opinion. They were the best. They when I would dance, that band, still to this day, if I listen to something and I'm on a treadmill and I'm listening to All Out War, I think about the most psychotic shit to do in the pit or something, because that band had the sickest breakdowns. They were ahead of their time. And in my opinion, they were a fucking metal band, but they were accepted only in the hardcore scene. So there are no rules, because they were hardcore kids playing straight up beat down Slayer. If Slayer started a beat down band and it was 1994, 1993, it would be called All Out War. You know what I mean? So I guess there's no rules, man. They had dreams. They were like, fuck it, we're going to play what we like. We're from fucking Newburgh. You know what I'm saying? We're fucking going to play what we like, and we like breakdowns with fucking Slayer riffs. I love Slayer riffs. I love breakdowns. Cool, count me in. Sworn enemy. You know what I mean? Like, so what are the rules? And to do it, you know, Integrity was the fucking like another band that was innovative. I mean, they had a different sound. They were different than most bands. You know, they like nobody's even been able to like copy and mimic their vibe. You know what I mean? Like and then you touched on Candiria. Carl was, I mean, those guys were friends years ago. I haven't seen them in 20 years, maybe more. And I loved Candiria. And I remember we played with Candiria one time, and Carl got locked up, and he didn't come to the show or something. It was like they played just a cappella. They didn't have no singer. And then he showed up mad late, like he got bailed out or something. He got locked up for some stupid shit. I forget. This is 94, 95 at Castle Heights. I'm not saying anything out of the ordinary. We all got locked up and done stupid shit. I mean, fucking Paulie, rest in peace. My brother, he got locked up for stealing fucking DVDs at a truck stop when we was on tour with Sepultura. Us and Suicide Silence are sharing a bus. He gets fucking locked up for 10 days on tour. We gotta have Alex from Suicide Silence fucking play drums. We had fucking Corey from God Forbid play songs. We flew out Corey to come and fucking, it was a nightmare until Paulie came out of jail and had to take a Greyhound all the way to meet us in fucking God knows where it was. I mean, the stories are endless. There's no rules. There's no rule. There is no rules. And that's why I feel like, you know, I'll never give up in the music space.
Yeah. Quick, two things, because like I just, and this isn't like to just name drop or nothing, but I had John from Candiria on a while ago, and it's like the stuff he's doing is just wild as shit, I think, considering, which is saying something considering what he does in Candiria. Yeah.
He's a musical
and then
genius.
Corey, a quick Corey story. So we did a podcast a while ago. I didn't release it because I was like, I'm looking out for you, because like God forbid's just kind of getting back up on their feet, and I could just see somebody running with a headline.
Imagine what he was saying. I love Corey. He's out of his fucking mind.
He was like, release it. I don't give a shit. And then we started doing his friend Jackie that used to work, her boyfriend, now fiance, is like an A&R, I think at Nuclear Blast. We were doing a podcast for a little bit called The Green Room, because we'd all just smoke some weed and just bullshit. And even that, we never finished our first season, but I might have put it out eventually. But what's funny, and I think this just goes to like who Corey is and why I'm like, I don't think you can hate on the dude, because like he's just so loving. I went out to Vegas when he was living out there before moving back to Jersey. And I was like, hey man, like he's like, do you want some of the weed? Because I work for a weed company. And I was like, sure. Get him into a show at the House of Blues out there. This motherfucker rolls up with a giant ass bag of weed outside of the venue and just hands it to me. And I'm like, motherfucker, what am I doing with this? Like, I'm sure, I don't even know if this shit's legal out here. You're just planting this shit on me. Like, am I going to get fucking stung walking into this venue? Going to call me out? And I just had to like tuck it like fucking Harold and Kumar, and then like walk in there, and everyone's like, stinks like weed in here. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know nothing about that.
He loved
dude.
Fucking, man. He loved his green. Yeah, shout out to God Forbid. Shout out to all them guys. They were our, you know, like our tour brothers, you know, like we toured with them a lot. We, you know, like, you know, Doc has had an incredible, you know, career moving forward. You know, a lot of, you know, the guys that we all toured with back in the day, became mega stars, well, like in that world, you know what I mean? Like, and, I've always been championing that, man, and always been happy for these guys, man. But, at the end of the day, we still got to all win together. So I'm going to work. I ain't stopping.
Kind of focusing a little bit more on Crowdkill and stuff like that. I wanted to kind of pick your brain a little bit because, I know you were pretty integral in helping Sworn Enemy get signed. And then obviously we talked about your role within Sumerian and so forth. But I kind of wanted to figure out, when you were kind of doing all that, that's kind of probably late 90s, early 2000s, and then even kind of mid 2000s. What's something now when you're looking for a band to sign that you feel is universally the same then as it is now? And then I would say maybe even a weird kind of offshoot to that question. Has there been something between you, Ant, and Rich that you have found kind of to be a little bit of a struggle to kind of overcome with starting this new thing and kind of how the industry maybe has changed?
Well, fortunately, we have had a lot of success in artists that we find. We've had a lot of success because I think the ear, and the knowledge of what's good, what's growing, how you see the engagement, like we've had some success when we find the artists that we want to work with, and it's been really good. Even if on the level of development, there's still, bigger than you would expect, and it's because of the relationships. It's because of the family aspect, the I guess maybe they might have been fans of Sworn Enemy or E-Town. Things like that help for us because they once listened to us or once knew who we were. That helps. We offer, a management service deal as well. Like we manage the band and we'll do the label servicing, and we offer a lot of that to kind of manage their life, like their, as they grow and so it's like the struggles, they're always going to be struggles with artists. There's always going to be ups and downs. There's going to be expectations. There's going to be hurdles, but I don't think that we've had any, knock on wood, any kind of like bad experiences yet. And we have some really great artists that's really streaming and doing really, great numbers touring, doing really great numbers at merch. And we're only been around about a year and a half, like technically a year, well, technically 8 months. Our first record came out in September with Lakeview. So that's and they're all hardcore kids. You know what I mean? Lakeview is a bunch of hardcore kids, man, from Pittsburgh. And now their music is fucking awesome, like country rock, I
was going to say they're the ones that did that song with the Gideon guys, right?
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
Put your money where your mouth is. So yeah, they're crossing over in so many ways, but that's why we have the Gravel Road, and then we have Crowdkill. Crowdkill is going to be, focused only on hardcore metal, deathcore, dark rap, all that. That's kind of that lane, and it's everything's a struggle, but at the same time, we've been lucky to have all that momentum and all that build and everything that we've built throughout the years, and the respect and loyalty and trust from others, that we've been pretty lucky. Yeah, there's been no real struggles to get this off the ground, man. It's been kind of like relieving, even when I talk with Ash and he's like, bro, do you even understand like how good you guys are doing, how fast, bro? Like Sumerian's one of the fucking biggest in the genre right now, in all metal rock. They're killing it. Bad Omens fucking killing it. I mean, all these bands that Slaughter to Prevail, bro. Come on. Bigger than any deathcore band could ever think of. Like, and he's just like, bro, so there's been some great conversations with Ash, and we're working on another movie together. So I'm not sure if I could spoil it yet, but it's part of a universe that we've done already. So
probably Paradise City.
No, not like Paradise City. It'll be pretty much American Satan 2.
Okay.
Be the beginning of Paradise City, which was American Satan 1.
I think it's really amusing. I remember when you were in the TV show Paradise City, and then later were in a movie called Paradise City that had nothing to do with one another.
That was just by chance, bro. Like that was just. I remember we're about to release Paradise City, and then I get hired for this Bruce Willis, John Travolta movie called Paradise City in Hawaii. I was like, that's funny. And then I ended up being an executive producer on that as well. I'm just like, so I'm an executive. People must be so confused when they look at my IMDb, like these two fucking what the fuck? It just randomly happened. I mean, it's so funny and it happened within a year of apart.
Well, I was going to say, like, I've learned, and this is probably not necessarily the greatest barometer for the reality of it, but I assume it's kind of like Ballers and stuff like that. But I was going to say Entourage, like the amount of things that you would see in Entourage where like season 2, they're talking about something, or like it would be floated around like Ari's in a meeting and it's like, oh, I hear so-and-so's attached to this script. Yeah. And then season 4, they're trying to get Vinny or someone on that. And then you're like, oh shit, like sometimes it literally takes that long, and it takes these things, and then there's working titles that, just like songs, change over time. So it's one of those where I had wondered initially if like one of the Paradise Cities was not Paradise City, had a totally different working title, and then changed eventually, and that's how that ended up kind of happening.
It's completely two different. One's a movie, one's a TV series. One's with Bruce Willis and John Travolta. That was the second time they worked together since Pulp Fiction, which was cool to be a part of that and be with them in Hawaii together. That was cool. Maui, at all places. That was awesome. But yeah, they were never like Paradise City pretty much would be hard to continue because of Cameron Boyce. He passed away. And that was, he was a big character on the show, and sadly he passed away. And, he was a good kid. What a great kid. It's sad. He was young, 20 years old, bro. He had his life ahead of him.
I think that's the unfortunate thing. At least I'll speak for myself. As you get older, like I have dealt with a lot of death, friends and family and so forth over the years. And it's something that I didn't really take much stock or faith in. Like I just assumed everyone kind of goes through that. And it wasn't until I had a therapist, like most things, where the revelation kind of comes through, where it was like, you've had a lot of death in your life. Like, how do you, like, have you ever really thought about it? And I was like, no, it happens. Like, it's going to happen. And then, being told that that's not really, not really how a lot of people feel about it, especially at a younger age, where you're just like, yeah, it's going to happen. And I don't know when it will, but it will. And kind of just discussing how people really push that thought away and don't really, I think, live their lives to the fullest, understanding that it will happen. And to kind of, not to say YOLO, like hyperbole, but that's not the right way to say that. But either way, but like, it is kind of sad, but I think every time that happens and I have a friend that I lose or a family member, I'm always just like, fuck, man, like really need to like stop putting shit off and procrastinating and just kind of get things done and live my life before it's over.
Yeah. I mean, I just buried my father 6 weeks ago. I know all about it.
I'm sorry to hear about that.
Yeah. I mean, that's, again, it is a part of life. So, you either just, everybody grieves differently too. So you can't really, everybody has their own way of grieving. There's a certain way to grieve with friends, certain way to grieve with family members. It's a grind. It's a unfortunate, horrible thing that we all are going to go through. And that's just life.
I would say at least, silver lining probably. You were on the road somewhere, like overseas, and having to just get a phone call, and that's kind of how you had to deal with it because show goes on, kind of a thing. That I think a lot of people don't understand that side of the touring world, where it's like life happens and you're kind of on the grind, just kind of continuing to do the thing and miss a lot of big moments in your life with others. Boy, that just kind of derailed things a little bit. Sorry about that.
It's just life, you got to, those emotions, you go through them, and It's like we're talking about something that's, more, what sucks in conversations, but they're real, like let's not sugarcoat anything, let's talk. And they're real, like and shit, like people died on the road, people's died in, tour buses, people, parents have been killed or died while on tour, it don't matter where, it don't matter how. If it's someone like your parent, man, no matter what, it's fucking brutality, man. It's the worst fucking thing to feel.
This might be a weird question, but since we're here right now, and I'll ask it, and before you answer, I'll kind of go to how I came up with this thing. So I've obviously been talking about how, I grew up out east and I live here in Michigan, and I don't really go back home anymore because I don't have things that like most of my friends. I moved away when we were in middle school, so I don't know them. I've tried on occasions like to link back up with my old friends, and too much time's passed.
Yeah.
Most of my family, they're old. They've all passed away as well. What little bit I have, that's the only reason I go back home, really. It's not home. But I had this kind of epiphany at my uncle's funeral, staring at my parents and then my two grandparents on my mom's side who are still back home, that I was like, shit, these next two, when they go, I have no ties back here anymore. It's not like literally I have no roots, no nothing. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of a wild thing to think of because I don't really feel like Michigan is my home either. And it's when I had that thought, it kind of really made me feel like I can pick up and move anywhere. I could be anywhere because of that, because I don't really feel roots or tied to anything, but I still inside feel like East Coast, and that is my home. I identify so strongly with people from back home. Have you kind of had that? Have you kind of gone through that at all in moving out west and so forth, and just kind of feeling like maybe home isn't home anymore, or not really feeling like there is a home?
Well, that's another good question because I've been in LA 12 years, so it's my home in LA, but I've always was back and forth to New York, 5 times a year to take care of my dad. And then when he got sick last year, he fell and broke his hip. I was home 9 times a year. 8, 9 times before he ended up passing away. And then I got with my girl and we ended up getting a place, moving out of the Bronx to Coney Island. So I'm home. I'm in LA now. This is my LA place. Then I have my Coney Island place, and now I feel like I'm more of a New York, connected to New York now more than ever because I have an actual place there. But I also felt the pressure and the responsibility of taking care of my dad and helping him at 92 years old was really rough. And I feel like there's a weight off my shoulders that he's not suffering anymore. He's not, miserable because of his age, and he couldn't be the man that he was, which is still hard and, tragic to have not have him in my life or call him and just to break chops and laugh and everything we would do all the time, or he would complain about me, but I always felt the connection to I'm a fucking New Yorker, bro. I can't, there's no, but I do what you mean because but I do have family. My sisters are there and my nieces are there and nephews in there. And now my girl, and we're going to start a family at some point. So, and my new place in Coney Island is sick. And I'm like, man, the Warriors was made in Coney Island. I'm fucking all about this place. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm like kind of like reliving my whole New York childhood again, I'm bi-coastal. I'm going there on Thursday on a freaking red eye, not tomorrow, but next Thursday. And I just came back last week, and I'm going back and forth, So I have no ties, but I don't have is home any more home. I feel like New York was getting weird during COVID, and I didn't want to be there during that time, so it didn't feel like home then. But I feel like when I'm in New York, in Queens, or in Brooklyn now, I'm home, man. I could talk to the people the way I know where I am because I'm connected to the culture in so many ways. I never let my accent fucking go away unless I got to do it for a movie. I never let my New York roots and my hustle disappear or reduce because I'm in LA now. Nah, but it's a good question because if you have no family in the place you were calling home or you are from, there's really no reason to go there. It really isn't home anymore, especially if you're in Grand Rapids and you're making moves to essentially have a family there.
Yeah.
That's where you're from, man. You know, it ain't where you're from, it's where you're at. Superior 5.
Yeah. Well, it's been kind of funny because like my wife and I love to travel, and so sometimes we'll have gone to like funerals and stuff like that, like I said. But you know, we went to Long Island to see a friend of mine. He tour manages and does a lot of like behind the scenes stuff in the touring world. And they got his old band back together, and they played. I forget the venue, but it's pretty much one of the only ones in Long Island. And it was kind of The World We Knew.
Okay.
And it was really kind of funny to go because like we went to Coney Island, we went to like a couple of the like little part of Brooklyn, but kind of went around. And every time we go somewhere out east, my wife's just like, I don't fucking like it here. People are kind of rude. And I go, they're rude in a very polite way though. Like she goes, everyone does the fucking speed limit and they just cut you off. I go, they use their turn signals though. Like there's just little things I'll point out where I'm like, I think it's funny. I think it's endearing. It reminds me of growing up out that way and visiting different people. But it's interesting to see it through someone else's eyes that didn't have that experience. And it's those kind of moments where I go like, these are my people. This is where I'm from. This is my home. But it's just kind of interesting to realize the thing that I think for a long time I thought was home. It was the people and its family. But I guess indirectly, the culture and the people that make up the community are also your family as well.
Yeah. Well, you're tapping into your roots, man. You're tapping into the culture, what made you, what raised you, what gave you your accent, what gave you the upbringing. So, again, I think it's more easier to connect to it if you're with your family or your family's there. But if your family's not there, I can see why it does kind of lose its, it loses the home feel.
Yeah.
Because you don't go to a home. Now you go into a freaking hotel. You know what I mean? So it's a difference. I can see that.
Is it kind of interesting to kind of bring it back to some of the other questions I want to ask you? Is it kind of wild to think that some of the people on your roster and so forth, and some of the people now look to you as like a father figure as you're helping them navigate this journey through the music industry for themselves?
Well, yeah, I mean, it does make me feel that my knowledge and my years and experience, 30 years of experience, has given me a platform to help others. It does feel good to know that I can do that. Does it get exhausting? Fuck yeah. So many people, like a lot to deal with, a lot of phone calls, a lot of, walking people through shit 1,000 times before they get it. You know what I mean? Like it's all of it's hard. And at the same time, I do feel like it's cool that people do look up to me in that way when they want to be, I guess, mentored or guided and give the right advice. But it's because I got the experience, man. You don't have the experience. Like, I don't know how some of these other guys make it in the music industry or any industry that doesn't have the experience, but they have the money and they buy their way in. Like, if you've never been on the road, you never made a movie, how are you in the movie business? How are you, really in the music business if you never fucking played a show, or you never toured, you never changed your strings or fucking carried a drum set when you didn't want to carry the fucking drum set? You were like, I don't fucking play drums. Why I got to carry all your shit with you? You know what I'm saying? Like, nobody lives that. It's like, those experiences give you ammunition to help others, when they're going through it, and it's a part of the fucking thing, man. It's a part of this, it's a part of that. You got all these things. It gives you the tools to do what you got to do to help others.
Yeah. I think there's a saying that my dad used to say, and I fucking hated it. And I've only gotten to use it back on him one time, and it felt so good. But he always makes this comment, I've been your age, have you been mine? And the sentiment is, obviously, listen to me because I'm trying to save you from headaches and hassles and so forth. And the only time I ever got to put it back on him was my senior year of high school. I was not great in school for like my freshman year. I just fucked off too much. But basically, after getting kicked off the basketball team for bad grades, when other people had been let go and I finally was going to see playing time, I was like, I'm never letting that happen again. And I fucking I worked my ass off and was an honor student the rest of the way through high school. And I remember at one point he was trying to I got an A and I was an honor student. And he was just like, well, it wasn't an A plus, I think you should. And he's trying to tell me how to study or something. And I looked at him, I go, I'm an honor student. Have you ever been one? And he goes, no. And I go, okay. And I just walked away. And he just goes, yeah. And my mom just laughed at him. She goes, got you with your own shit. And I was like, yep. And I was like, mic drop done. There's nothing you can say because it's the same shit you tell me all the fucking time. So boom, right back at you.
Fuck yeah, man. Hell yeah. Oh, at the end of the day, we got to be proud of what we can do. You know what I'm saying? If we get somewhere, we got to be proud that we got there because 9 out of 10 times you're not getting there. Because there's obstacles and people blocking, and the fact that you got the A. Listen, man, it's better than a fucking B plus.
Yeah, or an A minus.
Or an A minus, so.
Yeah. Something I kind of wanted to pick your brain about as well, because one of your, and I'm fucking terrible with remembering names, Nathan James. He's on a really great tour right now, and by all accounts, because I follow Joe and a few of the other guys that are on that tour, and it looks like, he's killing it, having a great time and getting over, more importantly, again, to use a wrestling term. But it's interesting because to me, I feel like, and kind of, again, why I kind of brought up the doc thing of people kind of miss not taking accountability for, I think, their own careers. But something I feel like you've done well with him that I've noticed is you're putting him on tour with the right bands and in front of the right demographic of people. How important has that been, do you think, to the success of the clients on your roster, but just in general, really focusing on that, not just putting someone on a tour just to satiate them being I want to be on the road. I want to be on the road this amount of time, however that looks. And you're like, no, it's got to be done this way. It seems very intentional on your guys' end. I would assume that's correct.
Well, it's, we have an agent that we piggyback ideas off of with, and shout out to Jeremy Hogerson. He used to book Hatebreed and used to book us, Ignite. He used to book a lot of hardcore bands, but now he's, a monster at I'm spacing on everything right now. He's a monster agent. Whatever the agency is. Fuck, I'm spacing on so many things right now. Shit. Oh my god, how can I space on this fucking thing? Cut this out. That part out.
Okay.
Whatever. So shout out to Jeremy Hogerson. Fuck, independent artist group. Yeah, IAG. He's at IAG.
Okay.
Fuck, because he was at UTA. You know what I mean?
I was gonna say with all the different acronyms and stuff like that, especially someone like Tim, and now I'm fucking blanking. The guy that Dave Shapiro that runs Sound Talent Media and all that stuff. The fact that they all started at different places and move and start new things. They're this acronym. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
But so we got to look at who the headliner is, the package, what's the audience going to be like if they would fuck with Nathan's music. Nathan, now why he's on Attila, and Butcher Babies is kind of you know, crossover to the new metal, you know, genre, it's a perfect fit for him to play for whatever the crowd, the amount of crowds is, if it's 500, 600, 200, 300, whatever it is, that is, those kids would resonate to his music. So if there's nothing else going on, and that's the tour that he's going to be on, he's going to be on a tour where if he's got some breakdowns in his songs, and he does got a lot of breakdowns. I mean, he did that Paleface Swiss song, the next rising deathcore band. Like, you know, he has so many different tones and sounds that sonically work with, you know, anyone who's new metal or metal is going to gravitate toward it. Maybe a hardcore kid or two might like it, but I'm not sure if there's hardcore kids going to these shows. So like, I wouldn't put Nathan on Terra, you know. I wouldn't put like I wouldn't think I'd put Filth on Terra, you know. I wouldn't put Nathan on Terra, but I'd put Nathan. I would, you know, like would, you know, the In This Moment tour was, you know, massive for him. Kim Dracula, you know, because he can work the set list too. He can play the more radio, new metal, the Marilyn Manson vibe, the Korn vibe, the Nine Inch Nails songs he has, the Linkin Park stuff that he has. And then if he's on tour with Attila, he's got to play some of the hardest shit. You know, there's a lot of the breakdowns, there's Slipknot more sounding stuff. You know, so he's so diverse musically, sonically, that he can be in so many different lanes. So it's you know, it's a collective, but, you know, ultimately we all got to make the decision, like, you know, does this tour make sense or not? And then, you know, sometimes they're a gamble as well. But In This Moment was another perfect opportunity. He was playing pretty much a lot of amphitheaters, arenas, and big, you know, smaller civic centers and bigger Palladium type stop, you know, venues, which for a growing artist that's just starting to tour this year, or in 2024, rather, the end of 2024, he's got a bright future. So collectively, we all make the decisions, but we have to see if it makes sense. You can't, you don't, like, if Slayer was like, oh, we want to take out Nathan James, be like, Nathan, you're going to have a lot of exposure, but you're going to get fucking booed every night, because anyone playing for Slayer is going to, before Slayer, they're chanting Slayer, any band. We had it while we were playing at the Agora Ballroom in Chicago, 4,000 people chanting Slayer while we were playing. It's fucking brutal. Go ahead, go open up for them. But the experience that I had, I'm telling you that it's going to be rough. So maybe that's where I benefit, or a client would benefit with expectations. You know, okay, I'll take it, but I'm listening to you, so they don't go out there and they're bummed out, because it's a bum out, getting fucking booed, or not booed, or just fucking every time you would stop a hard stop, everyone's like, Slayer. It's just like, you know what I mean? So, you know, there's ways to strategize.
Well, I was going to say, I think like what gets interesting, and this is coming from the most minuscule version of this, but like booking shows at, like, I used to do independent booking. So I would like book at Pyramid, or you don't know the Pyramid scheme, but it's like a 420 cap room across the street from where the intersection is. But I've also done stuff in the intersection. Now they are like they have 4 venues within that one venue, ranging from like 100 cap to an 800 cap, more Chicago style horseshoe, 400-ish cap, and then the main room. So they turned that front room that was a bar area into a venue, if you remember that area at all. But it's a thing where
intersection. I'm talking about the first one.
The one in Easttown. Yeah. Okay.
There was one that was in a bar kind of vibe, and then there was one that was on a corner.
Yeah.
And we played both of them.
Yeah, the one on the corner is where it's at now. The old bar was in Easttown. Yeah. But it gets interesting when you kind of like book shows and you start understanding different things, and something it's forever kind of ruined going to shows for me, because now all I do is just look around going like, what's the guarantee? How much does this cost? Da-da-da-da-da. Oh, I'm noticing that the opener has to price match the headliner, things like that. Even getting down to like, you know, merch cuts and shit. But it's a thing where I also notice bands getting these big look opportunities. So like, you're saying like, Nathan getting to do a Slayer tour, but it's like, okay, I would be more interested after that tour is done. What does a headliner look like? Is the growth still there after supporting a bunch of these people? And there's a lot of bands in this scene that I'm noticing. Some have really, really, really been given a lot of great opportunities and piss them away, it seems, when it comes to the headliners or whatever, because they'll have played the same room that they played, like 400 cap room 2 years ago, sold it out, come back 2 years later after doing nothing but amphitheaters and all this other stuff, and then you can't even sell at half the room. Meanwhile, other bands that were lesser, like smaller on the bills that you were on, grinded, did it very slowly, got big look opportunities, and now they're fucking big. And you see them on Jimmy Kimmel and they're getting Grammy nods and shit. And it's one of those things where I see that and go, how much of that is the management and stuff putting them into these opportunities and going, we're just going to give you all these big look opportunities, but not being real with what these aren't great tours for you to take. That's really not a great opportunity long-term for your career versus maybe these other ones that were managed a lot better from behind the scenes. So I kind of wanted to pick your brain about that, because I think both sides are so important to a young band's career and success. But I think it's sometimes heeding expectations, or at least being very honest with what the expectations should be. And I think that goes back to what you were saying of like, we were there, we've done it, and maybe they'll listen to you more. But I just think like it is a huge part of the touring industry, and that's the only part really, it seems, anymore where anyone's making money. So it's just, I wondered how important that side of things is to you, because it seems like you're just doing it very well right out the gate, which again, going back to Ash, you guys don't know how well you've been doing everything. And so maybe, doing something like this and looking back a little bit and noticing like, yeah, I guess we've had a lot of good fortunes right out the gate.
I think that collectively management, that cares, that's trying to develop the career, trying to see if, pretty much trying to see, I guess, testing the waters with certain tours. You have to test the waters. You have to see what works, what doesn't work, and then move accordingly to that. Like there's, and I would, to echo your statement about the bands doing amphitheaters, arenas, and then they go back. I think fans start to think that they sell out, and then they turn their backs on the band that was once their, like underground DIY band, and now they think that they're too cool because they're on tour with Knock Loose, or they're on tour with fucking Parkway Drive, and they're playing all these bigger venues. So I think kids are a part of that as well. It's a gamble. Nobody has a crystal ball. It's a gamble every way, shape, or form. It's a gamble because at the end of the day, there's no guarantee that you're doing the right thing if it doesn't work. If it works, you stick with that formula until it doesn't. And you got to move with strategy. You got to figure out what's right for the artist and how to position that artist into the right place. And, knowing music, who listens to what. They're as a musician, as someone that has an ear, I'm going to listen to a band. I'm going to say, I would listen to both these bands because they have a vibe that's similar, but they're not. They're mountains apart musically, but they have a similar tone that people could gravitate towards. So I think that's another way to hopefully execute the right lineup when you are trying to get an artist. I mean, and then at the end of the day, we're our agents just submitting our artists to tours, and then we got to do all the backdooring to the managers, to the friends, to the singer, to the bass player. And that's how we're able to execute a lot of that as well, because it's, again, the relationships is everything. And if there was an easier way to do it, everybody will be doing it, and that's the grind. Anybody who's successful at this or successful at packaging tours or how to put their artists on the right ones, it's because they've been in it forever, and they know what works and what doesn't work by trial and error. Most of these people failed until they won.
Yeah, I've always thought it was kind of interesting, being such a fan of music in general. It was kind of interesting, and I'll kind of start wrapping this up so I don't take up too much more of your day. You were talking about some of the different kinds of artists you wanted to work with for the label, and one of them that kind of caught my ear was, I believe the term you said was dark rap. And as someone who's kind of into rap and stuff like that, something that I find really interesting right now is sort of, I feel like rap's kind of in a really interesting place right now, because like you look at someone like, and this person's gone, but like you look at someone like Juice World or like Trippie Redd, or like some of these guys who are kind of blending genres, even Corday, even a little bit, where it's kind of like, it's not quite rap in the traditional sense. It kind of touches on like kind of alternative music, and brings in some influences from that, which I think is just a byproduct of the younger generation now having TikTok. Like I don't have TikTok, but them finding old songs and making them new again. Like look at the guy who drank the ocean spray, and now everyone loves the Fleetwood Mac song that was like 40 something years old, and introducing that to a new cross section of people. So then even like, listening to like, I think it's like Big X the Plug and like some of these other guys who are kind of remind me more of like the early mid 90s kind of style rap, where it's just kind of, it is what it is. It kind of feels, and I think another thing I'm noticing is it's more kind of getting regional again. Like back in the late 90s, early 2000s, thinking of like Cash Money and like No Limit, where it was like, this is Southern hip hop. Then you got like stuff like Clips and stuff, and that's Virginia. And like everyone kind of had a sound, and they were putting their city on and stuff like that. That I feel like there's kind of these things happening again, and I'm noticing. So to me, I know obviously it's probably hard to just go, well, we're looking for this kind of genre or whatever, but has it been kind of interesting for you guys to see these genres that maybe like nu metal? I definitely didn't think when nu metal was dying off in the mid 2000s that it would ever fucking come back, let alone as much as it has. And even the newer influences that they're bringing into it, that because nu metal wasn't really ever one thing. It was kind of a lot of things. Like, Static X was more industrial, but Taproot or someone like that was kind of more straight ahead rock was technically nu metal. And it's like, it wasn't any one thing. So when I hear you guys talk about like Lakeview, is that the band's name again? The kind of country. It's like when you guys see stuff like that, is that what gets you excited? This it's not any one thing. And so the limitless potential of where this band could go or these artists can go, is it things like that get you excited to get those kind of bands in front of people's ears? Or like, what is it that gets you excited now about new bands, and where do you even see music going in these different genres now that it's getting more blended?
Well, I like to listen and work with things that I like to hear. If I love listening to it, it's a great, if I like listening to it, it's a really good reason for me to move on it. Like I gotta like to hear it. Do I love the blend of what like the Suicide Boys and like Ghost Man and those guys? I like that blend. It's cool. It's like Bone Thugs. It's like it's like metal. It's Bone Thugs with metal. It's like so much of that is music to my ear because it's new. It's cool. It's not. It's the vibe of what they look like to what they're rapping and how they look. The metal singers look. The metal looking singer rapping to me is cool. I like that because it's different and musically I can fuck with it. There's a lot of artists like that. Red Zed, we're talking to him. We've been out with him a lot, and he's sick as fuck. And we're working something out, and he's Ozzy meets Bone Thugs meets fucking Sepultura. And fucking Cypress Hill. It's like with hooks. So I like to listen to shit that makes me fucking move, and gets me going. And I know it could be on the radio. And that's what I think I look for, to be honest. But like the the DIY stuff, I'm gonna fuck with things that I love, like hardcore. You know what I mean? Like, you know, if it's like shit like Filth is hard as fuck, bro. That Chin Check song, when I saw that, I fucking immediately sent it to Anthony. I was like, this is the future. Rap deathcore, hard as fuck. And it works. It works fucking perfectly. It has a vibe, and I was like, that's different. You know what I'm saying? If I saw another, I don't know. I mean, I'm just like, and I don't want to, you know, another deathcore band that's been done, I wouldn't be easily intrigued. But if they're blowing up and they want to fuck with us, and I can see how we could blow them up, and then maybe convince them in so many ways, you know, A&R their music a little to get them a little more of what potential I see in them, could, you know, potentially change their vibe. That's something that I see in them because I'm an artist, I'm creative myself, and it would work and it would blow up. I'd be pumped, you know what I mean? Because that's, you know, that's building. But yeah, that's exciting. Whatever excites me that I want to hear and see is what I'm going to go for.
Yeah, it's so funny. As soon as you said Suicide Boys, I remember listening to them at the job I'm back at now at a screen printing place, and we would play them in Death Grips, like when both of them were pretty fucking new. And it's been like Suicide Boys just played Little Caesars Arena out here in Detroit, and I'm like, as the headliners, and I'm like what? Like, can't believe that happened. And then it's like Death Grips getting on like shit like Riot Fest and things like, and like Coachella, and you're like, this fucking band? Like, I know why I like it, but like, I wouldn't assume anyone would fuck with it on that level. So it's kind of like wild to like see stuff that I think is very abstract and not mainstream break into the mainstream and have a lot of success. Has been kind of insane to see over the last few years. And again, even going to like Knocked Loose, like seeing them open for like the Acacia Strain and stuff like that, like over the years, and you're like, now you're doing it. I remember interviewing Brian before, I think Riot Fest, or maybe it was Louder Than Life, one of the DWP festivals. And I was like, how does it feel to kind of be the only band of your sound, your style, your genre, and being presented on this big stage? Because at that point they were headlining little 800 cap rooms. And it was kind of interesting to pick his brain about it now, but just to see like the success they've had since then, insane. And it's, for me, I love seeing shit like that, and it excites me just sitting here doing where I do this. So I can't imagine what it's like from your side, where you're like, fuck yeah, we helped make that happen.
Well, funny enough, me and Anthony were talking to Suicide Boys when they were touring with Puya, and it was like maybe 300 kids a night. And we were, you know, like they were like old Sworn Enemy fans from New Orleans, like both of them, Slick and I forget the other guy's name. But we were all on text, and I was in my car with them, and we were driving around in LA, and went to see them in New York, and then we were fucking with each other. And me and Anthony was trying, and Anthony was just growing commission, had Little Dicky. Little Dicky was like fucking platinum already, or on the radio every day. We were trying, they were like, yeah, nah, we you know, like they kind of just weren't into it, but we wanted to fuck with them then, try to get them on commission, try to manage them. And it didn't work out. But I mean, I'm so happy that they're on top of the world. I mean, that tour grossed $55 billion.
Jesus Christ.
That's fucking insane, bro. That's insane. So that's why I feel like I missed that opportunity, you know, and again, I hold myself accountable, and I'm sure me and Anthony we just couldn't get him. You know what I mean? We were with him. We were like, you know, like, yo, let's get up, let's talk, let's da. And they were like, yo, you know, like they were Sworn Enemy fans, and they knew who E-Town was. I don't know, I don't remember exactly what it was, but they were old hardcore kids from fucking Baton Rouge. You know what I mean? And I could tell by their fucking aesthetic, their hair, their fucking tats. I was like, they definitely are from our world. And
yeah.
And it didn't work out, but I'm so happy. Like, a shout out to Suicide Boys for doing that. I mean, they're fucking on top of the world. And they took out my friend Jay's client Harper, who's fucking opened up for that tour, and they're huge. Harper's doing fucking great, killed that tour. So, you know, again, that genre is something that I want to tap into because I feel like I like it. Some of the songs I love. And if I fuck with it, then I want to fuck with it because then I'll put my passion behind it. You know what I mean? If a band is doing awesome and they're not sonically what I listen to, but I could see that it'll grow and be something that I could make other people happy with, a part of the team. We all could eat from helping one another. That to me is interesting, but I gotta love it, man. Like I'm a person that if I'm not loving something, I feel like I'm working. But when I love it, I don't feel like I'm working.
So last question for you. Where can everyone find you or anything you would like to plug online?
Well, for my personal, it's at Lorenzo Antonucci Jr. Jr. For my IG handle. At Crowdkill Records is for Crowdkill Records. And at gravelroad.co is for the country side of things. And yeah, man, Antonucci Pictures, my production company for the movie divisions. And shit, I mean, I have a lot of like Night of the Cadillacs, man. My comic book universe, man. I got a bunch of comics coming out. That's like the Warriors meets Lost Boys. That's been in development for the last 8-9 years. We're fucking releasing so many titles. It's crazy. I have a fragrance, a cosmetic company with Ashley Benson. That is ashbyashleybenson.com. It's, if you want to smell good, it's a unisex brand. It's gender neutral. Yeah, there's a lot, man. There's a lot. And there's a lot of movies coming out.
I was going to say, this is, like I said, kind of to start off, you're someone I've been wanting to get for quite a long time. And through whatever reasons, it just never really panned out. But it feels like now is the kind of time to do it. And I'm very appreciative of your time and the life you've lived. It sounds really shitty to say like this, in my opinion, but my wife sent me a thing a while ago, TED Talk, and it's about this lady who was talking about multi-potentialites. And essentially what it is people who have a passion for something, maybe move on from that, kind of are passionate about this new thing, and they just kind of keep doing that. They kind of give it their all until either the passion's not there, and then they leave. And I feel like right around the time of her showing me this, I was like, oh, are you saying I don't commit to anything? Because that's how I took it, and that was my insecurity at the time. But instead, I kind of really, as I get older, understand why passion is important. And having seen a lot of your career from Sworn Enemy to, like I said, everything that you've done since I've followed you, you are someone that when I see you take on new challenges, it kind of inspires me to be like, oh, well, maybe I want to introduce more hip hop onto this because I love hip hop. But so far, sadly, it's not really been anything that's I can tap into on this. But the only one that has so far is fucking Vin Rock from Naughty by Nature. So I'm like, I'm glad I tried because eventually I got a fucking OG legend. So I'll take that win over some else that, of not getting some other people. But it's a thing where, like I said, I've seen you try and do so many things because I know that you're passionate about it. And it kind of reinvigorates me to kind of follow my own passions and different things. So from one man to another, thank you for showcasing that throughout your whole life and being uniquely and honestly who you are, because it makes me feel that I can do the same. And if not, then fuck them.
Yeah, man. It's an honor to be here. And I'm glad we did this. And, the best thing I could give as far as advice is do whatever the fuck you want. Because
Absolutely.
If you don't, someone else will. And if you feel like you're good at it, keep doing it. If you don't feel like you're good at it, don't do it. That's it. Because everyone has the same amount of time in a day. Everyone. So how does Jay-Z get to where he is? How did fucking Puffy get to where he is without the baby oil? So I had to throw that in there. I don't know. It is what it is. But how did 50, the fucking man? I mean, from same neighborhood. I can't wait to hopefully one day work with 50 Cent. That is my fucking dream. You know what I'm saying? Because I feel like I'm so similar to him in so many ways. We're from the same neighborhood. I don't know. That's my hopes and dreams a part of them, like and obviously working with Sylvester Stallone, and I worked with The Rock already, and I would love to work with The Rock again. But I feel like those three are that's the hybrid of who I am. In my opinion, that's like what I project to be, like The Rock, Stallone, 50. I feel like that's the hybrid of Lorenzo, that's what I am, and that's what I aim for. I want whatever the fuck I want. I'm going to do it with integrity, honor, and fucking respect. I'm never going to fuck nobody. I'm going to be righteous, and I'm going to do everything that I want because nobody's my boss. And that's where you got to get yourself to, and then you can do whatever the fuck you want. And that's how I feel like. Like, I feel like I'm almost there. And that's kind of like the catalyst to how I get up every morning, and I just go work to the beat of my own drum.
I couldn't think of a better way to end this podcast with some words of wisdom from you. So thank you again, and enjoy the rest of your night.
All right, brother. You too, man.
So that was my conversation with Lorenzo. I want to thank him once again for honestly just taking the time. Some of the things we ended up discussing, I think something I've really been sort of struggling is maybe the wrong word, but I think it's just this sense of identity. Like we were talking, I know he's New York through and through. He's an East Coaster through and through. But at this point, being a bi-coastal person where, he spends time out in LA and lives out there, but also lives back in the East Coast now, that it's one of those things where I wonder if other people struggle with kind of the sense of home and your identity built around where you grew up and, being proud of that. Like, for as much as Michigan is my home at this point, I have lived in Michigan longer than I ever lived in Delaware. And for what I would say are much more important parts of someone's life, I have lived here in Michigan. But it's something that I'll always identify as an East Coaster. And when I see and befriend, like some of my friends now, there's a friend, him and his wife are from Philly, and we just talk about a bunch of different shit. I got a friend that lives out here that's from Long Island. I got a friend, I have friends out here that live in Michigan, and some of the things that we discuss that are interesting to me that I don't have any touch with anymore is my East Coast roots. And it's something that it just reminds me of where I came from and what I identify as kind of the foundational part of me. And I think it's even funny that when I meet new people are like, well, you're not from here. Where are you from? So it's interesting that this idea of self and identity and all this kind of stuff and beyond just, I would say, like outward appearances or things you have or things like that, but where you grew up. And it's a bit of a struggle, I think, as I think now more about, my grandparents getting older and, getting a phone call from my mom the other day about how my grandfather's not doing great. And realizing that the last little bits that tie me back home are going to be gone. And at that point, does that make me kind of not have a right to, and I know that's such a stupid way of saying it, but like, does a part of the thing that I hold on to that I identify with, does it leave? Is it gone once they're gone? And I don't know. It was just kind of interesting to pick someone else's brain about that. And then to get into, talking about loss and death and so forth with Lorenzo. Like, I wasn't expecting the conversation to go there. And I'm really thankful that Lorenzo kind of really opened up, talking about those things. The stories about his dad and taking care of his dad and reconnecting with his family and back to being in New York and all these kind of things. It was really special to hear those stories, and I'm glad that he shared that. And hopefully, if you're listening to this and are going through something similar or whatever, I hope that helps you. That's something moving forward with these episodes that are coming up. I know that there's something in each one, several moments in each one coming up that are hopefully going to help one of you guys and gals that are listening to this show, because at the very least, they help me. And I know that they probably have to help somebody else. I know that some of you reach out and tell me these things. So I'm just very appreciative of Lorenzo for everything he did in this episode, everything potentially he'll do with sharing the episode and the reels that I made. And that was the other reason that this episode didn't come out, because I wanted to make these reels, and I went through the episode, and I really wanted to make sure that what I was grabbing I thought was good. Something that would maybe draw you in, would give you a better idea of who he is, maybe what the show's about. And it may not look as professional as I wanted it to, but I'm just going to admit that, like, at this point in time right now, as I'm sitting here, the ability that I have in making those kind of things is not there. I'm working on it. I will continue to work on it, and hopefully in due time I will be better at it. But currently this is just the best that I can do with it right now. All of that said, let's start wrapping up this episode. If you would like to keep up with Lorenzo really easily, you got a link tree that's in the show notes, linktree /Antonucci Pictures. That basically goes to all the different businesses, all the different stuff that there is. Otherwise, to spell it out plainly, if you'd like to go to Facebook, it's lorenzo.antonucci.1238. Instagram is at Lorenzo Antonucci Jr. There's also Crowdkill Records, Antonucci Pictures. There's a slew under Lorenzo's Facebook profile, or I'm sorry, actually both his Facebook profile and his Instagram profile. And there's also Real Antonucci on Twitter. It doesn't look like it's been updated in about a year or so, so it doesn't seem like he's super active over there. You can also keep up with everything with gravelroad.co. And I didn't really see anything for Crowdkill Records outside of just the Instagram handle. So if you happen to see it and I missed it, shoot me a message and I'll update the show notes and everything. And if you'd like to keep up with the podcast, simple enough, BREWspeakPod on all your social media platforms. I was actually joking with my wife the other day that maybe she needs to take over and start and re-curate essentially a TikTok page, but we'll see if that ends up happening. It would be great to have some help with socials because I just don't care and don't understand a lot of it, but be that as it may. So maybe be on the lookout for a TikTok page here pretty soon. Also, if you want to rate, review, subscribe, you know why that is important. It helps tremendously to, basically just word of mouth is great. The show has been spreading, like I said, after the Ken Susi episode, like so many new followers, so many new subscribers. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much. I hope you are enjoying the episodes, past and present. I know some of you have reached out to me in DMs and so forth saying, that you're doing just that. And that's always been something I wanted in doing this, is that I wanted someone to organically find the show some way, shape, or form, and then essentially to end up being like, holy shit, there's 300, 400 episodes, and oh my God, I love this person or this band, and you had them on, and it's so cool and so rewarding to do that. And like I said, especially now being so close to episode 500. So thank you to everyone that's been doing that and checking everything out. You can also, like I said, email me at brewtallyspeaking@gmail.com with show suggestions or anything like that. I also want to give out a huge shout out to Rockabilia, as always, for their continued support of the show. Use our code BREWtally at checkout. Take 10% off your total purchase order. Frankie's the homie. He reached out to me after I made the post about, taking a little bit of a hiatus, and dude's always there for me. Always there to have a phone call about some stuff, and just is a great dude and a great company. So please go support them if you're able to. Use our code, save some money, and just want to thank everyone for the support over the last week or so of being down, metaphorically and otherwise. But yeah, that's it for this episode of the BREWtally Speaking podcast. Hopefully you'll come back next week. We got Chris Davis from The Ghost Inside, Texas in July, and Lafer Load-In podcast. That was a really great conversation. I'm very excited to get that one out to you. And if you haven't checked out his podcast, please do such. Ironically, I believe as of right now when I'm recording this, they are probably finishing up their chat with Jesse from Killswitch. The irony, I had reached out to Jesse personally and set something up, and then, the day before yesterday, this is when I'm recording, Jesse was like, I have another podcast I got to do, so now I got to have a little bit of a time limit. So ironically, it was with Chris, and I know that's going to be a great episode. Just like the episode I have coming up next week with Chris is going to be a great episode. Please come back, and I'll talk to you all then. Enjoy the rest of your week.